Throughout history, power has been highly visible. It belongs to kings, generals, and presidents, authorities backed by official flags and public records. Yet some of the most influential figures to ever exist never held a public office. They never commanded a recognized army or possessed a single shred of legal legitimacy. These shadow figures controlled entire cities. Local politicians worried about them, businesses adapted to their demands, and the public whispered their names rather than speaking them aloud. Their empires rested on the premise that sheer influence could place an individual above the rules that govern everyone else. Most criminal organizations begin in a single neighborhood. With limited resources and a small circle of followers, the only immediate goal is survival. Expansion begins with the use of fear, one of the oldest tools of human authority. It shapes behavior, discourages resistance, and often outlasts the original threat. While legitimate governments rely on public trust, underworld leaders bypass agreement entirely. They rely on the certainty of consequences to force obedience. Systemic fear transforms a loose collection of criminals into a functioning shadow state. As wealth increases and territory grows, a leader's ambition shifts from basic survival to empire building. This requires multi-tiered hierarchies. A single operation quickly branches into specialized factions to manage increasing scale. Growing hierarchies implement rigid enforcement protocols to protect revenue streams and ensure order. Maintaining this structure requires constant mediation of internal disputes and swift elimination of rivals. Through this institutionalization, the syndicate functions like an illicit corporation, pursuing the same territorial goals as historical conquerors. When fear becomes the primary language of a region, replacing trust and the rule of law, the very nature of authority changes. The effects are visible in every layer of society. Businesses cooperate without question, witnesses stay silent, and communities actively avoid confrontation. The public learns which unofficial rules carry the most weight and recognizes who truly controls events behind the scenes. This shadow authority derives its strength from the widespread belief that resisting the network is too dangerous to attempt. Power built on fear creates a very unique problem. The mechanisms used to protect a leader will also isolate them. Maintaining control requires constant, intense scrutiny. The leader must evaluate the motives of every ally seeking money, protection, or status. Systemic fear eventually erodes the leader's ability to trust anyone, making paranoia a structural requirement of the job. Fear generates absolute obedience, but it simultaneously destroys the trust required for long-term stability. Internal fractures often appear before external ones. Massive wealth and influence breed deadly rivalries and questions of succession, weakening the empire from within. The fatal blow often comes from a trusted insider, someone who understands the system and decides that loyalty is no longer advantageous. As the organization grows, it enters the visibility trap. Its immense scale makes it impossible to remain hidden from the state. Governments utilize evolving surveillance technology and financial tracking to identify the network's vulnerabilities. Secrecy is the primary defense of a criminal organization. The loss of that secrecy makes a total collapse mathematically inevitable. These underworld stories endure in our culture because they reveal the mechanics of absolute control and the pursuit of influence. They demonstrate a consistent historical lesson. The forces used to build these empires, fear and rapid success, ultimately trigger their decline. While most kingpins controlled cities, one man pushed this model to a financial extreme. He established a narcotics network that generated more wealth than several nations' GDP, proving an underworld empire could rival the financial scale of a sovereign state.